And for Jerusalem's sake I will not rest, until the righteousness thereof go forth as brightness, and the salvation thereof as a lamp that burneth. And the Gentiles shall see thy righteousness, and all kings thy glory. And thou shalt be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name. Thou shalt also be a crown of glory in the hand of the Lord, and a royal diadem in the hand of thy God. Thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, neither shall thy land any more be termed desolate. But thou shalt be called Hephzibah, and thy land Beulah, for the Lord delighteth in thee, and thy land shall be married. Let us pray. Father, God, we come to you today in Jesus' holy and wonderful name, Father, asking you to bless this message. Father, give us the words that we need to say that will come into our hearts, God, that will lead us, God, and guide us and let us know what you have for us. I pray, Father, that you'll touch every soul in this place. Father, if there's one lost in this place today, God, I pray that you'll prick at their heart, God, and let them know what they must do, Father, to be able to come and be one of yours, God, and be able to make it to heaven. Lord, be with us this day, Father. Bless Brother Buddy as he preaches, and we'll thank you and we'll praise you in Jesus' holy name. Amen. I'm going to try to preach a message this morning. And, you know, the last two songs there was about names. I want to try to preach a message this morning. What is in a name? What is in a name? You know, in the ancient world, a person's name meant something. It was usually about one of three things. It had something to do with their past, something to do with their present, or something to do with their future. If it had something to do with their present, it was something about their character, something that told something about them. You could tell what kind of person they were going to be just by their name. For their past, it would be something to do with some great thing that happened in their past or some great person in their past, that their name would relate to that or mean that. And then for the future, it would be something that their parents hoped that their outcome would be. It was something that they would want them to become in the future. So it was their names usually related to something in the past, present, or future, but they always meant something. Today, names don't really mean that much anymore. Parents don't take into consideration what the name means before they name a child, usually. Sometimes they'll name one after somebody, but what I've seen lately, and well, for the past several years, is that people just make up names. And sometimes it seems like they just grab a bunch of letters and throw them out on the table, and however they land, that's what the name is. I heard one name that it had no vowels in it. It's just consonants. So, you know, how do you pronounce a word that don't have any vowels in it? So, you know, we have a tendency today is I want my child to have a unique name, but the name means nothing. It has nothing to do except just be an unusual name. So, you know, that is something that we have grown accustomed to in this world today, but names have always meant something to God. God has always considered a person's name. So we want to talk about how that what God is doing with people and how he cares about their name, what he wants the name to be. Sometimes he changes a person's name. Here in this scripture, God told Isaiah, and he's talking about the people of Israel, said, I'm going to give you a new name. Well, why was he going to give Israel a new name? Why did he have a new name for Israel? Well, it is something that he had an idea for their future. He said, I'm going to give you a new name that's going to relate what my desires are for you. I'm going to give a new name that means what your future is going to be. So because he wanted to have a name that meant that they were no longer forsaken, or that they were no longer desolate, he gave them the name of Hephzibah. Hephzibah is a name that means I delight in you. I delight in you. He's telling Israel that you are my people and I delight in you. I care about you and I want the best for you. And this is going to be your future. I'm looking over you and I want to have the very best for you. Well, when we get saved, we could call ourselves Hephzibah because God cares about you. God delights in you. So when he looks down at this world and he sees the things that are going on and he sees the hardships and things that his people are going through, he says, your future is not always going to be desolate. You're not always going to be forsaken. I delight in you. And he said the land is going to be called Beulah. The word Beulah or the name Beulah means taken to be married or to be taken care of. When a groom would betroth to a woman in Israel, he was promising that he would take care of that girl or that woman. He would come to the father and he would say, I want to marry your daughter. And I promise that I'm going to take care of her when we're married. They didn't go and say, well, you know, you got a big dowry. I want to marry you for your money. You know, that's a lot of things in people's lives today. People want to marry somebody for what they can get from them. But when it comes to God, he said, I am going to be married to you. So when we become the bride of Christ, and you know that's what we're called in the book of Revelation, that we are the bride of Christ. He is married to us and he has promised that he will care for us, that he will take care of us. So that name means something. I want to be called Hephzibah. And I want my life to be called Beulah. You know, I want it to be blessed and I want to be married to the Lord. And what it means that when he's talking about this, he's telling Israel, I'm putting an end to your desolation. I'm putting an end to your forsakenness. I'm putting an end to the problems and things. This is my desire for your future. So we see that God has a meaning for the things that he does. When God called Abram and Sarai out of the land of Ur, the Chaldees, he called them out and told them to come out from your father's house. He said that the names that I have for you don't suit, or the names that you have now don't suit your future. I want you to come out from among them. I want you to come out and be separate. I want you to look for a place, a land that I have prepared for you. Abraham spent his entire life looking for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. So he was searching. He was a pilgrim and a stranger in this world, but he was married to God. God told Abraham, you know, my plans are not for you to be called Abram. He said, that means, the name Abram means exalted father. Well, that's a good name. But that's not what God had for Abram. That's not what he planned for him. He says, I'm going to call you Abraham, which means a father of many nations. You know, he could be an exalted father. He could have a couple of children, you know, if God blessed him to. At this time, he didn't have any. But God could bless him to have a couple of children and him be a great father to those children. But he said, that's not my plans for you. I am planning for you to be the father of many nations. You're going to be greater. You're going to have a heritage. People all through time are going to know your name. And they're not going to call you Abram. They're going to call you Abraham, the father of many nations. And then he told Sarai, he said, your name don't suit you either. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. But he says, your name doesn't suit what my plans are for you either. Well, Sarai was a good name too. It meant my lady. You know, she was Abraham's lady. Teresa is my lady. You know, our wives are our ladies. We care for them and we exalt them. But he says that's not good enough for you because you're going to be the mother of many nations. So that makes you a princess. Sarah means princess or noble woman. You're not just going to be Abraham's lady. You're going to be the queen. You're going to be the princess of many nations. So there's not hardly anybody in the world that's ever been to a church house that don't know the name Abraham and Sarah. Not many people could tell you what their former names were, but they can tell you what God called them. So God has something for us. He has a plan for us, and he lets us know that through the name that he calls us. And so let's go on to a few more that God talked to and changed their names. Here we talk about Jacob. When Jacob comes along, his name, the word Jacob, means deceiver or supplanter. He deceived his brother out of his birthright. When he went away, he had to get away to keep from getting killed. And he got over here and he married this lady, and her father had a lot of sheep and stuff. Well, he supplanted him out of most of his sheep. He was a supplanter. He was a deceiver. But he had seen the angels ascending and descending. So he comes back, as he starts back home, he comes back to that place again where he had seen the angels going up and down the ladder to heaven. And he comes to that place and he lays his head down and an angel comes to him. And he begins to wrestle with this angel. Why is he wrestling with an angel? Well, he wants something. He no longer wants to be a deceiver. He no longer wants to be a supplanter. He wants to be something better. He has changed his ways. See, it no longer fits his character. So when we see what God did for him, you know, it come to the morning, it's time for him to you know, the angel said, I've got to go away. And he says, I'm not going to let go until you bless me. So the way that God blessed him, he didn't bless him. He had all the riches that he ever needed. He didn't need more land. What he needed was something better. He needed a new name. And God changed his name from Jacob to Israel. He said, you're no longer going to be called Jacob, the deceiver or the supplanter, but you're going to be called Israel. God preserves, or God reigns, or power with God. Here we have him changed from a deceiver and a supplanter to someone that has a power with God. God says you have wrestled with this angel. You have desired something better for your life. You said, I'm not going to let go. You're determined to have the blessings of God, and I'm going to give those to you. If we're going to have the blessings of God, we have to be determined to get them. We can't just be haphazardly going to church for no reason just so that our name is in the book or something like that. We have to be dedicated. We have to be the name that we deserve rather than what we have. When Joseph, when he was with his family, he was mistreated. He was put in a pit. He was sold to the slave traders. He was carried off to Egypt. He was sold into the house of Potiphar and deceived in the house of Potiphar and then put into prison. And here it is, he's in prison and he don't see a bright future. He don't see much going on for him. But one day when he was remembered in the courts of the Pharaoh, he was called up, and Pharaoh made him from a prisoner to the second in charge of Egypt. His life was totally changed. But his past had not changed. He still remembered where he came from. He still remembered what had happened. But he became great in Egypt, and he had a good life in Egypt, and he had a family in Egypt. So when his first child comes along, he says, I have a special name for you. I'm going to call you Manasseh. Manasseh means causing to forget. He has caused me in this place to forget my past. He's caused me to forget those that have done me wrong. He's caused me to forget the suffering that I went through as a slave, the suffering that I went through as a prisoner. But he has brought me to a place that I am happy of where I am. I've been blessed. I don't need to remember the past. So Manasseh, every time he looked at that son and called his name, he was saying, you're causing me to forget my past. And then he had a second son. And this son's name was Ephraim. He said, son, I call this first one reminds me every time that I've forgotten my past. Now I'm going to name you Ephraim. Ephraim means fruitful in the land of my affliction. Not only has God caused me to forget my past, but he's made me fruitful in the very land where I suffered, where as a slave and as a prisoner, he has made me fruitful, and he has given me these sons. So every time he looked at his children, every time he picked one of them up, held him in his arms, he was remembering what God had done for him. We need to forget our past. A lot of us have past that we certainly don't need to drag around. We don't need to try to remember the people that have done us wrong. We don't need to try to remember the problems and mistakes that we've made in life. But we need to look forward to what God has planned for us, to say, I can be fruitful in this land. We have suffered trouble, we have suffered trial, we have suffered affliction in this land, but God has changed my life. I'm no longer suffering that affliction, but I am a child of God. No matter what I have to go through, I don't need to remember my past. But there's a sad part to this too, because there's people in the Bible that their names are not worth mentioning. They had a position, they had a story about them, but their names are never given. The reason their names are never given is because they were useless in society. They were outcasts. They had no reason to have a name. So I'm going to talk about a few of those. Sometimes we think that we're useless, and sometimes we are. There's some people that are useless in society. They don't contribute nothing to society. They just dredge on society. So, there's people like that. They're useless. And you think, well, they're no good. But God don't look at them and say that person is no good. He don't look at them and say, I can't do anything with them. I can't make anything out of them. He looks at them as what their future can be. So, no matter what we think of ourselves or what we think of somebody else. Somebody comes in off the street and they don't look good. They ain't dressed good, and they maybe not smell good, and maybe come in with a smell of alcohol on them, or just the dirt of the street, or the reputation that is not good. We don't need to look down on them. We don't need to say they can be no good in society, because it's not what we see, it's what God sees. So here we have some people that had no name until they had an encounter with Christ. The first one I'm going to talk about is blind Bartimaeus. You say, well, Bartimaeus, that's a name. Well, that ain't a name. That is not a name. That was part of his father's name, Timaeus. Bartimaeus just means the son of Timaeus. He didn't even give him a name. It's just the son of Timaeus. When people saw him, well, that's the old son of Timaeus over there. He's blind. He's no good to society. He can't contribute anything to society. He's a dredge on society, standing laying over our begging. Look at that old thing, old blind Bartimaeus. You know what Timaeus means? the son of uncleanness. You know, even the title that they called him after his father's name, this is the son of uncleanness. He is no good for nothing. We see no good in him. But there's one day that a crowd come by, and old blind Bartimaeus, the old son of uncleanness, laying over here in the ditch that everybody was trying to push away, he started crying out, what's going on? What's happening? And they said, hush. What's going on? I want to know what's going on. Well, Jesus is coming by. Hush, get out of the way, you old blind thing. You old useless thing, you old unclean thing. But he kept crying out, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus said, bring him to me. He needs an encounter with Christ. It's time for this old unclean thing to have an encounter with Christ. And they brought him to Christ, and Christ healed him and gave him his sight. Now, I want to tell you something that made a difference in his life. That made a difference in his life because he had a future now. He was no longer useless. He could go out and get a job. He could take care of himself. He could do the things that he formerly could not do. He was no longer a dredge on society. And his name was no longer the useless, unclean son of Timaeus. Now, I don't know what his new name would have been, but I give him one. I give him the name of Basar, B-A-S-A-R, Basar. You know what Basar means? The name Basar, it means sight. It means sight. He was no longer the son of uncleanness, but he was Basar. He had sight. And I believe that when he was out in society and out in with people and stuff, and there'd be a crowd of people going along, and they'd say, I see something on the horizon. I see something off in the distance, but I can't make out what it was. Basar, come over here. Tell us what you see. I believe you could see better than anybody in Israel. His name was no longer uncleanness, but his name was Basar, sight. One day, Jesus was traveling through Samaria, and he sat down on the well. And he was at a time of day when nobody was usually around. But here comes this woman to the well. She came there at that time because she was an outcast. She was rejected. Nobody wanted anything to do with her. She couldn't come at the time that the other women came because they shunned her and they did not want her around them. She couldn't come when a man was there because the men knew that she had been married 5 times and was living with a man at the time. They didn't want anything to do with her either. She was rejected. She was shunned. So when she came to that well that day, all we know of is that she was the woman at the well. But I'm going to give her the name of rejected. When she came that day, she was rejected. I don't know if any of you have ever been rejected or not. I don't know if any of you have ever had people shun you or stay away from you because just of who you are. But this woman's life was that. Her entire life was being rejected. She could have went out in the desert and had as much company as she had there. But she had an encounter with Christ. And he revealed to her who he was. She said, I know that the Messiah's come. I know that the Messiah is going to come someday. And Jesus said, the one you're speaking to is he. I am he. And she got so excited that she dropped her water pot. It may have broke. She didn't need it no more anyhow. And She took off running back to town. She said, come and see, come and see, come and see. I have met a man that has told me all I have ever done. Come and see this man. And there's something special about what happened. Because people came and saw Christ. They believed her. And they came to see what she was talking about. And they begged Christ to stay with them, and he stayed a few more days with them and said many more were saved. There's something about that. Many more were saved after listening to Christ. Meaning that there were some saved before they ever came to Christ. They came, they got saved because of the message that this woman had given them. I don't know if any of you don't believe in women preachers or not, but you know she was probably the first woman evangelist. He said, go on in town, go on out there. You know what he did? He sent her out. He sent her out. He said, you go out and you tell them what you have seen. So I changed her name from Rejected, and I gave her a new name. I gave her the name of Isabella. You know what the name Isabella means? It means sent out. How many of you could take that name? You know, Jesus told us, said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. You know, try to get people saved. This woman went out and told who she had met and what had happened in her life, and people were saved by her testimony. She was the first woman evangelist, and she was sent out. So I call her no longer the woman at the well. This is Isabella, the woman that was sent out. I pray that God will send us out. You see why I'm talking about the songs? I've mentioned the songs that were sung this morning. Have been called out. You have been called out. Jesus was standing at the temple one day, and here come a crowd. I believe they were dragging a woman. This woman had been caught in the very act of adultery. We don't know who she was. We just know that she was an adulterous woman. And she had been caught in the very act, which the punishment for that was death. I don't believe she just walked up there to where Jesus was voluntarily. She was with a crowd of men, and they probably had her by the arms, dragging her through the dirt. Because you know what her name was at that time? Death. She had no future. She couldn't contribute to society. They couldn't give her a name for the future because her name was death. She had the death sentence upon her. The men probably had the rocks ready to throw. And they brought her to Jesus and said, what do you say that we do to her? The law says to kill her. Well, you know, you think, well, Jesus said, no, don't kill her. But he didn't say that. He just stooped down and wrote around and let them think a little bit. He stood up and said, he that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone. He didn't say, I'm taking, you know, don't kill her or anything. He said, go ahead and kill her. You know, she's broke the law. Go ahead and kill her. If you think you're good enough, if you're righteous enough. You know, we look at other people sometimes and we think that we're better than they are. But when we look at ourselves, we might find out that they're better than us. So these men kind of did a little bit of self-examination, and from the oldest to the youngest, they began to walk away. There was a rocky pile laying there where them men stood when Jesus stood back up the second time. And he looked at that woman and he says, where are those thine accusers? Where are they at? What happened to them? They're all gone. She said, Lord, I have none. Jesus said something special to her that day. He said, neither do I condemn thee? Go and sin no more. So this woman that had come to Jesus with a title and with the name of death went away with a new name. And this is an unusual name, but I want to tell you what it is. This is the name I gave her. I gave her the name of Hyrcanus. Hyrcanus. From that time on, when people looked at her, whether they called her this or not, that was her name. That was what her life meant, Hyrcanus. You know what the name Hyrcanus means? Mercy. Mercy, save me. We can all go with that name. We can all say that it was mercy that saved me. It wasn't who I am. It wasn't the sentence that was on my life. You know that whenever time that one of us comes to Jesus and we have an encounter with Jesus, you know what her name is? It's death. Because before we come, excuse me, and we have that encounter with Jesus, our sentence for our life is death. Not just death in this world, but eternal death, eternal separation from God, death and punishment in the lake of fire. That is our name, is death. But then we have an encounter with Christ. And Christ looks down and says, you don't deserve this. You're not worthy of this. This woman was worthy of death according to the law. But I'll have mercy on you. And he looks down and he says, you can go free. You know, he told this woman, you can go free. Hyrcanus. I like that name. There's one more person I want to mention to you. I could go a long time, but one more person I want to mention to you. One day Jesus was coming, I believe, into Jericho. Large crowd of people surrounding him. And he was just thronged. And there was a little old woman. She was the woman with the issue of blood, as we know her. But I'm going to give her the name of sickness. She was just sickness. I don't believe she was walking upright. I believe she was all stooped over. I believe she could barely get one foot in front of the other. She'd been bleeding for 12 years. She probably so weak that she couldn't hardly even stand on her own. But she had determination in her heart that she was going to meet Christ. That she was going to touch the hem of his garment. Because she had the faith. Have we got faith? Have we got any faith? She had faith that if she could just touch the hem of his garment, that she'd be made whole. I don't believe she shoved people aside and got up there and just let me in there, you know. I believe she got right down on the ground and crawled. People kicking there, get away, sickness, get away. I don't want you touching me. You cause me to be sick. Rejected, no good for nothing. Get away from me. But she made her way close enough. She probably just with the last ounce of strength in her body just lunged out and touched his garment. And Jesus said, wait a minute. Hold on here. Somebody touched me. Have you ever touched Christ? Have you ever touched the hem of his garment? If you have a desire to, you can. This lady, as sick as she was determined to touch Christ. And when she touched the hem of his garment, something changed. Jesus said, who touched me? And I believe it was Peter said, Lord, you were thronged. There's 100 people touched you in the last 3 seconds. What are you talking about? He said, I felt virtue. I felt virtue go out of my body. I feel for those people that need me. I have a lot of feeling for those people that need me. And I felt virtue go out of my body. And he said, he turned around and looked into the little old lady. By then she was standing up straight. Her back was no longer bent. Her legs were no longer weak. But she was standing straight up. And she had to admit, she knew that he knew it. She said, it was me, Lord. It was me. Sometimes I want to just touch the hem of his garment. And I'd be glad to admit it was me. But he said, you're healed. You're no longer sickness. Your name is no longer sickness. I have a new name that I gave her. I gave her the name of Rapha. Rapha. You know what Rapha means? Healed, healer, healing. She was healed. When we have an encounter with Christ, our future changes. We're no longer who we used to be. We no longer have the same outlook that we used to have. We're no longer who we used to be. You know what, Billy Joe? My name has no meaning whatsoever. Name has no meaning whatsoever. Now William, which Billy is derived from, is a good name. Joseph, which means resolute protector. That's a good name. But my name ain't William. And Joseph means good will increase. But my name ain't Joseph. Increase. But my name ain't Joseph. My name don't mean a thing down here. I don't know what your names mean. What counts is your name, whatever it is and whatever it means. If your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because Christ has already changed your name. You know, when I looked my name up, I was, what I was hoping it would mean. What I was hoping it would mean. Faithful evangelist. That's my desire. The words. But my name doesn't mean anything yet, except it's written in the Book of Life. And that God knows my name. Yes, God knows my name. I am not forgotten. I'm not rejected. I'm not rejected. I'm not useless in the kingdom. As our name written in the Book of Life, we're not useless. You know the most important name in the Bible, though, that I want to talk about is Yeshua. Means the Lord saves. God is salvation. You know why it's so important? There's no other name, none other name under heaven given by we must be saved. Must. His name is above every name. And I want you, and they'll say, I've done this in your name. And I've done that in your name, and I'm a great person, and, you should let me into heaven. But the thing that he's going to say to them is, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. Your name is not written down, and I don't know what your name is, and I never have known your name because you never had an encounter with me. But in the book of Revelation, in chapter 2, in verse 17, Jesus speaking, to him that overcometh, will I give to, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saving he that receiveth. You know, I've read that back in the times of, the Greeks and the Romans and stuff, they had the Olympics back then. The Olympics were started by the Greeks. And those athletes that would go out and compete, they go out and compete today trying to get a gold medal. That gold medal is the ultimate. When they were given that white stone, a lot of these athletes were slaves. You're free. Restaurant or whatever, reach in his pocket, glasses. I have this. It's free. You're free. Anything you want is free. The desires of our heart, he says he will give us the desires of our heart. He don't say you can buy the desires of your heart. You can't fight for the desires of your heart. You can't get the desires of your heart except that he will give you the desires of your heart. You're free from bondage. You're free from the sin that had you pegged as useless, that had you pegged as outcast, that had you pegged as no account, as forsaken. And he gives you a new name. And we'll know what that name is when we walk through the gates of heaven. He'll have a stone for us. And in that stone will be written a name. Freedom forever. But there's a lot of people that their names are not going to be written down. Our former names will be forgotten, will be known by that new name. But there's a lot of people, and probably people sitting in this building right now. Now, I'm not saying I know anybody's heart that some of them don't have their name written in the book of life. And their name now count. You may be Rick. Your future is a pit of fire. Cast him to outer darkness, where there's weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. The rich man died, and in hell he lifted up his eyes. And he said, Father Abraham, send landed in this flame. Has God got your name written down? Would you stand with me this morning, Renee? Come back to the piano, please.